Welcome back to the Fear and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies, and just a little bit of beer.
So kill the lights, grab a cold one, and join us as we dive into this mad world we love.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Jamie.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You miss me.
Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
And as a reminder to all listening, if you want to help us to continue growing as a podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whichever streaming platform you use.
To stay up to date with us and all of our episodes, be sure to follow all of our socials. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fear and Beer Pod.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love to interact with you all.
Well, a day late and $1 short just never seems to change. It's our style right there. But I'm trying to kick a sinus infection. I'm trying to not sound as nasally as I possibly can. I'm trying to be able to hear what's coming through because my head is still pounding, but there's a lot to discuss. We were going to kind of push it, but we realized we've kind of pushed a lot of episodes lately, and we want to kind of talk about stuff as it comes because I think the next time we will be talking to you all, we will be talking about something factual, an actual announcement, but we'll get into that. I'm not drinking anything. The only thing I'm going to be drinking is this suggested 2.5 to 5 milliliter an hour codeine. Yum stuff. Yummy, yummy. Good stuff. That's what I'm doing tonight podcast. So it's going to be real interesting. Let's get into a couple things before we get into that. I just want to mention again, we have our 4-year anniversary trivia night coming up. Coincides right on spot with 100 days until Halloween Horror Nights. So that's going to be May 22nd. We are going to be hosting that alongside Catacombs of Horror Nights. We are going to be with HHN 365 and the RIP tour. They're going to be helping us along on our trivia hosting journey. We can hope you can all attend if you're in the local area. So swing on through. It's going to be at Topgolf Orlando International Drive, not the Lake Mary location. So don't mix that up, but get there early. We're going to be starting right at 7:30. We had a pretty packed crowd last time, and we kind of held a little bit for stragglers, and it ran a little bit later than we would have liked. So we're going to really push that start time at 7:30. So make sure you're there early to secure a seat, grab some drinks, grab some food, and we'll get into some HHN trivia to celebrate not only our anniversary, but 100 days until Horror Nights. We will almost be in double digits. But like I said, we have a lot to talk about. And tonight it is just me and Jamie. We're going to be kind of dishing on some stuff quickly because, like we said, I keep saying there's a lot to talk about. And there's really there is and there isn't. Like, it's not factual stuff, but there's a lot of like interpretations and theories and stuff out there. So we'll kind of go back and forth and see what we think might be most plausible. So let's talk about some factual stuff first. Spooky Empire is coming up May 17th to May 19th. And if you have not attended, that is a local horror con, bunch of celebrities and stuff like that. But they are also going to be doing an HHN panel on the Friday. It's May 17th at 6 p.m., I believe it was. But yeah, 6 p.m. So make sure you get there early as well. It's usually standing room. It's at the Wyndham Resorts. You'll need a admission ticket to Spooky Empire to attend this panel. But they did announce who's going to be on that. And it's a large panel. Yeah. So I'll go through the list for everybody. But you have Dan Shaw. He's the Assistant Director of Entertainment Production. You have Nicolette Zinger, the Producer and Entertainment Production for HHN. You have Kelsey Ambrose, a Production Manager for Entertainment Production through HHN. You have Ramon Parado, possibly, Show Director in Creative Development. You have Melissa Kilpatrick, Scenic Field Producer. Nick Collins, a Senior Scenic Designer. Wendy Fenich, Lighting Designer. Patty Braswell, Senior Manager, Technical Entertainment Projects and Lighting and Show Control. So a large panel. There's a good amount of people. So I'm curious to see how and what they focus on, because every time they kind of have a different group. I think last year they had the ladies of HHN, and I think the year before that was like kind of the first one, and that was like Mike Aiello and some other creative directors were there. So that one was really fun. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna make it to Spooky this year. But
I want to drop my shift so bad to go. I forgot the panel was on Friday. I was kind of hoping it would be on Sunday.
yeah, I mean, I'm off that Saturday, Sunday, but I really am not trying to spend money
I
right
know.
now, just gearing up for Horror Night season. But if there was a day I would go, it would have been the Friday, just for the panel in particular, just
Yeah.
to kind of. I just like seeing that stuff, and
hmm
that kind of leads me to something we'll talk about later as to when we think the announcement's coming. But I definitely think they'll have something to talk about, I'm sure.
I think so too. And it's really cool to hear like their perspectives on everything and kind of the behind the scenes of everything. Because I feel like this year they're having a lot more different departments come and speak, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the board on this
Mhm.
one. So let's get into some factual stuff. This episode is really there's no timeline of when stuff came out. We're just it's kind of how I threw it in my notes app, and we're just kind of going at it. So stuff we're talking about is probably in shuffled order, but we'll do our best. But Horror Nights, the official Twitter, tweeted out yesterday, they don't want you to know there's something underneath ILN for HHVNG33333. So there is clearly an HHN 33 reference in there. And it was a picture, a very blue style picture of a door that says, "Do not enter." It's barricaded with a little 2x4. It looks very wet or frozen. I don't know why the bottom looks so grimy. It could just be the way they edited the picture to kind of throw people off the scent. And this is about as basic of a picture as you can put that got people spinning in 1,000 different directions. There's all kinds of theories, all of which have really no basis. There's just like, you could say, "Oh, yeah, it's Ghostbusters Frozen Empire because it looks icy and frozeny," and yeah, sure. You could say it's, Eddie because it looks like it's the Eddie door from the Icon's house. Yeah, sure. You could say it's Jack because in the HHN 30 promo, like the advertisements, he was behind the door. Sure. Like you could throw out a million things, and at the end of the day, once it all unravels and you know what it is, you could be like, "Oh, I was right." Well, you were right, but it was a guess. There was nothing definitively saying this is what it is. I feel like the advertisements as of late are very ambiguous, and I don't know if we ever really get the answers to a lot of like, what was this? What was that? It's just kind of very, very teasy. It doesn't really tell you one way or the other for sure. But I mean, what did you? The only thing that I got for certain out of this is that there's an announcement on the horizon, the very near horizon.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like you said, it's tough with these kind of things because you could really only just assume what it could be or just guess what it could be. You never really know. And I was like on the Horror Nights Facebook group looking at different posts and stuff like that, and people were taking screenshots and circling these different photos and like 50 times, like zooming in. They were like, "Yeah, it's Five Nights at Freddy's." You could see Chica, Bunny, and like Bonnie right there. And I'm like, how do you guys like even see this stuff? And like, I don't know. I feel like everyone's just reaching right now. I do kind of like these very cryptic like little messages. I think last year was a little bit better when you were actually able to decipher it, when all these internet sleuths were able to figure it out for us. But I'm not gonna lie, I tried to put in a bunch of different like mashups on like Google just to see if anything would pop up,
Enhance.
and exactly,
Enhance.
and nothing popped up. So I mean, my first guess was Five Nights at Freddy's, honestly, just because of like the basement looking security guard room scene. But I really had nowhere to go with this.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly just sort of like a backstage photo that they sort of propped up. It's very
Right.
Universal Sting Alley or
Mhm.
behind the scenes by the sound stages or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it really doesn't tell you for sure, but I don't know. I think that if anything, it is maybe hinting towards or alluding to some sort of icon. I don't think it's necessarily going to be an IP behind the door. I think it'll be some sort of something in HHN world. I don't think it'll be something in the IP world.
That would make more sense.
But I mean, if I had, like I said, anything that people are throwing out, it's merely a guess at this point. And there goes Boots barking in the background somewhere
There they go.
at the air. He's barking at the air, I'm sure. But let's move along because we got another post today, which got posted by. Sorry about the dog barking. He's just going wild. He's probably barking at maybe whoever's behind the door in the picture.
For right now, you guys listen to Nick's smooth talking voice, and I will be right back.
She can go solve the boots problem. But yeah, so it really just doesn't tell us 100% of anything. But we got a post earlier today from, I believe it was Inside Universal, who posted the video beforehand, and then Horror Nights sort of retweeted it. And again, it's another very vague, very cryptic style video that doesn't necessarily tell us 100% what is going on. It just kind of does their normal HHN thing where it's, what could this mean? This could mean this. This could mean this. And I'm just going to play that for us real quick so we can hear the audio. It's a very quick little video. And it really doesn't tell you too much. But again, people are theorizing on a million different things. So we'll listen to that real quick because it's a 14-second clip, and we'll kind of talk about this.
I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to make this quick. I followed those sounds, and I think I'm below Universal. Now, if I saw, but I think I saw, then no one's safe, and it's too late.
So I don't know what, Jamie, when you saw this or heard this, did this point you in any sort of direction at all?
Yeah, I kind of lean me in the IP direction again, honestly. I feel like that's where my mind always goes, just because I feel like it'll be a house announcement first, hopefully. But even though I haven't really seen the films, just with how they were describing it and how they were talking, it made me think of A Quiet Place.
Yeah, it's weird because the picture didn't point me towards like an IP.
No.
But that video kind of makes me think A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Like being chased by that. But I think I don't think that that's the case. I think it's going to continue that trend of whatever the picture was and who's behind it. But did you think A Quiet Place at all? Or
I did think A Quiet Place, yeah. But I was kind of... maybe I was hoping it was alluding to something else, but I really don't know. Like you said, it's kind of tough with these. I feel like they kind of, I feel like you're the good guesser. I'm not really good at deciphering things or trying to figure things out in that sense. So this could really be anything at this point, but immediately when I did see it, I did think A Quiet Place.
So what I did was I saved the video and I was trying to like play the audio louder and backwards and stuff like that to get some stuff, and this is what I got.
See, this is exactly what I mean. I would go ahead.
It's a Creed house.
I can't stand you.
Anybody that is enhancing this audio and trying to figure stuff out, it's just you're going down a rabbit hole that's just you're not going to find an answer to.
I was really intrigued.
Anyway, to get Creed on the show. It is something I would do, but I didn't have time to. No, all I could hear was somebody yelling like, "Hey, you're down there," or something like that. And it's, it's interesting because they did mention they're underneath Universal, and in the HHN lore, that is touched upon a couple times. So that is supposedly sort of where like the icons live and their lair or whatever, and that's also where Fear's lantern is underneath. It's supposedly in the art and design department, which I don't know if it's underneath Universal or not, but that's just something like there. So like, I think Fear is a bit of a reach. I don't know if they could tie him back in. They tried to tie him back in when they're like, oh, Fear was the puppet master all along. He kind of controls Horror Nights. And we've talked about this before. This is Seamus is one of his favorite icons. And I love the story of Fear, but because he's not necessarily a physical being, it's a little bit harder to play with. And I just don't know if they told it 100% right. I think if they went back and revisited it, and if they had a second chance at it, I think it would be done properly, but I just don't think that they lined it up correctly.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does make sense.
A lot of people are hoping that we get some sort of Eddie reemergence or revamping, sort of like Oddfellow. Oddfellow was merely a character in backstory and was not really seen, so it was easier to kind of like zhuzh him up and give him like a cool ensemble, a cool story, and really intertwine him into the story of Jack without really missing a beat. Eddie is a little bit different because we've seen him in person before, so I don't know how much they can switch up on him, but I would like to see some sort of stylistic change. I mean, they've done it with Jack before too, where they had like old school Jack and then Ringmaster Jack, and then the newer 3031 Jack or whatever it was. So they've kind of given him a couple different styles. So they could do something like that with Eddie, where he's Eddie, he's what we knew, but it's just kind of he's got a new swag about him, which I'd kind of dig that.
It is kind of cool because I feel. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
No, go. I was going to move along to the next thing.
No, I was just going to say, kind of talking about Eddie and stuff like that. I feel like the videos that have been dropped, these cryptic messages, I feel like the vibe and the scenery of it definitely fits what Eddie kind of represents. So yeah, maybe it could be leaning towards that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Lastly, a picture that Horror Nights Orlando posted on their Instagram stories. It didn't have any caption, but it was a Polaroid, and I'll hold it up. It's a Polaroid of the door. It wasn't. I didn't find it on their Twitter page, but it was on their Instagram stories, which is just weird because it's like, is the person that was in the video, was he taking this picture, or is it just Horror Nights being Horror Nights?
I think it's just Horror Nights being Horror Nights.
Yeah, like being cheeky. It's like,
yeah,
it's so weird and interesting that if they're tying that into like this character, is Eddie going to be taking pictures of like victims he kills or something like that? Or I don't know.
Interesting.
It might be more of a director move.
Maybe director, maybe something for like a jail, like mugshot like lineup. Maybe they'll get photos of that. I don't know. I feel like Polaroids in like that kind of setting always reminds me of like mugshots.
Very interesting. So they're talking. So this does lead me to believe that something is coming. There has to be an announcement next week. That's my theory.
You think next week?
I think so. I think May 15th. I think that's
they're
my
wait
date that I've been saying for a little bit.
I
think it's going to be on that Wednesday before the spooky panel, so they have something to talk about without being like, dodging questions.
True. All right.
Yeah, so I think it has to be. And usually like when the Twitter feed starts to like ramp up for Horror Nights, that's when they are like, okay, something's coming. We waited too because we were waiting for those other epic announcements. They already had stuff lined up. They had the announcements for the Orlando Park with the new DreamWorks land and the summer tribute store and the water show and the parade and stuff. All of those have already come and gone, and this was that slotted time where it was like, okay, they don't have any other announcements on the calendar, so this is when Horror Nights can kind of sneak in, drop something, and not be lost in the shuffle of things. So that's why I think. So you don't think next week? You think later on?
I think it's too soon. I was looking at some of the in the past years, some of the announcements and the dates and stuff like that, and I feel like we might not get one till more like towards end of May. But I didn't think, because our friend had reminded us at work today that Spooky, the panel was happening and everything. I completely forgot that Spooky was coming up so soon. And now that I know that's happening, maybe they will announce something or just give hints, I guess, because it was fun the year that we went to the panel. They showed like photos and kind of like storyboard drawings of some of the houses and stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
I think there was like Legends Collide. I think they were talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what Horror Nights Twitter and the Horror Nights social media team has been up to. So I think May 15th, you think more towards the end of May after the panel. So we'll see. Hopefully next week we have something to talk about. Something that is not necessarily Horror Nights related, but kind of. They have put out a sign today in the park for the Tribute Store Plaza mega video. So where you can become a part of the Tribute Store. And this is kind of like the last couple of years where you can take a picture and they're going to impose you into this green screen of one of 4 posters, and they're going to hang your picture up at the Tribute Store. Now, one of them, if you zoom all the way in, is the curated terror, Midnight Screaming, and it has a picture and it says it's directed by the Curator. Now, the Curator we remember from the tribute store at 31, who was kind of the graphic novels, and that was kind of his realm. And he was that weird, like, green crypt keeper, big sideburns kind of guy. That has sort of been hinted at in the community for a rumor as far as like a potential icon to come back this year based off of the spec map volume 1. The little skull image on one of the houses was black and white, and it was the same skull that was on the Tribute to Terror comics. So people were talking about, oh, maybe the Curator is kind of gonna make a reappearance or an actual icon or origin story, so to speak. With this being on here, do you think it's just like a fun little gag, or are they hinting at something? Like, because they've done this before where like tribute stores sort of hint towards another. Do you think we see the Curator in some way, shape, or form? A house, maybe not even an awful icon, but like a house or something like that? Or
I think maybe in the previous episode when we were talking about the spec map, how they have the black and white comic, sort of comic book style storefront that I had mentioned, that I thought it looked like, at least. I think it would be cool to kind of have an interpretation of him in the house. Do I think he'll be a big part of the event? No, I think it was just kind of like a cheeky, like, little design to make, which we never ever do any of the tribute store photos. And I told Nick today, as soon as I saw them, I was like, we have to get one of these. These are super cool. I really like that one. You like the cool TV one. But let me just say, I don't know what it is with Universal and me always being a day late to them putting out something new or announcing something at the park or bringing it out. Because I was just at the park yesterday and that sign was not outside of the tribute store or the tribute store storefront. So I was like, of course I miss it by a day.
yeah,
But
they
I don't
rolled
know,
it late.
maybe yeah, maybe it does have a little relevance because, like you said, they do always kind of put little Easter eggy kind of hints in some of the past tribute stores.
And it's just weird because it like he was not a prominent figure.
No,
Like
no.
until people really talked about it this year, I wouldn't have been able to be like, oh, the Curator.
Oh,
Like
no,
I
not at
know
all.
he was the tribute store, cartoon artist or whatever. Like it was
Right.
just sort of a, you know, blink and you miss it
Mhm.
scenario where you could go with, if you came once a year and you
Mhm.
went through the tribute store, you've no idea who the Curator is. I'm
No,
willing to
I
bet
would
that
have.
because I went long enough and I wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, I know the Curator. I had to
I would
see
have
the
never
picture of the
put.
guy to be like, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
I would have never put two and two together.
No. So this kind of ties in a little bit to sort of the next thing that was sort of rumored about on the message boards somewhere. But HHN Insider Legacy, very accurate with all their stuff, has been talking about, and I hope I don't take these wrong, but some sort of two icons scenario at the event. Now it's not a straightforward versus house, and it's one returning and one new. They're aware of one another, but independent of one another. These are very vague to me. And it's not Oddfellow and Jack. That, I think, for me, would be coming at a later date. I think 35 is the more appropriate date for a Jack and Oddfellow kind of style mashup. But it's interesting because we're talking about the Curator, and this could line up with one of the other houses that is been rumored this year being the Sweet Revenge house. So if they had something with like the Curator and Major Sweets, they are clearly very independent of one another. And the way that I think that they could know of one another is they were like storefronts. The tribute store was right in his zone. So they can be, if they are two beings, they could be very aware of one another. Do you think that has any legs to stand on?
Boots does. if you all.
As Boots beats you up in the background. If you watch on YouTube, you can see at this very moment Boots beating up Jamie.
um, I'm not trying to be mean, but I feel like that might be a little far fetched. The Curator and Mr. Sweets. I'm not sure. Major Sweets. I feel like it makes sense what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I feel like that's very in depth. That maybe I don't don't know. It's tough to think. I would have never thought of that combination. That's a good point. But is it too obscure is the question for them to make something out of it, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, and they're kind of both newish, not versus really one returning. So taking this for what it's worth, obviously it's clearly a rumor. And who knows if it means anything. It could mean absolutely nothing, and Legacy just wants to fuck with people. That's very much an option. But say those were facts. Say that there are two icons. There is one returning and one new, and they're, aware of one another, whatever. Who would you pick for that? Who do you think is kind of would fit the mold for that if you got to pick for one?
I would think you said one is new and one is returning?
Correct.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough because the two lineups I had, I feel like they would both be returning. I don't know.
Well, who would you say then, maybe? Like for the ones that you already had in your mind?
Maybe this is just because I would want it in a perfect world, but I was thinking Lady Luck and the director and or the usher.
I could see maybe like usher or director or something like that. Because if you had like the director and the curator, the curator is on that poster directing something. It says directed by the curator. And obviously we're reading very deep into something that could possibly mean nothing, but it's May and we're waiting for an announcement. So this is what we're going to do.
That's true. Or if Lady Luck too, I would really like to see Lady Luck in some capacity again. And I know you would too. I know you've mentioned before that.
Yeah, I'd love to see her back, but I don't think anything has really been talked about from her at all this year. So I don't know if that's on the table at all. I think Major Sweets is one of them, and I don't know if that would be considered a new or a returning, but I'd have to put it on there. And like I said, Eddie's name has been thrown out a lot. I don't know if his name's been thrown out more wishfully than factually. I don't think anything has been pointing towards Eddie in particular, other than maybe, the T-shirt is sort of, it doesn't really tie into him at all. That's just a stretch. I mean, to be fair, nothing has pointed towards any icon one way or the other. But if I had to say it, I mean, I would say Major Sweets and the Curator, saying that maybe Major Sweets is more returning and Curator is kind of new. If Major Sweets is out, then maybe the Major Sweets and like Usher or something like that. I'd like to see that.
That would be cool.
But that's just kind of what I had for those discussions. But yeah, those are kind of that's sort of the catch up as to what's been happening as of late. And this is like a little bit of a shorter, more thrown together at the last minute style episode, but we didn't really want to skip a week. We wanted to hit on all of this before we kind of got caught up to factual news, which I think is coming very soon.
And if we do sound kind of finicky on the mics, it's because our Wi-Fi is being very shitty tonight. So you might hear some a little lagging in between or little awkward pauses in between.
Cutting in and out sometimes.
Yeah, so we're really trying for you guys.
We're keeping it short. We're recording late on a Friday night. We got work or early in the morning, and I got to go take my codeine. So, but that's really all we've sort of been seeing out in the world so far. The HHN 365, they did put out, this is something again that I'm usually pretty good with these code names and finding stretches, but I really don't have much for them. But somebody on their Discord server had did a deep dive and found the permits for the new tents, and the code names are on there. So Sprung Tent 3, which on the speculation map version 2 is the little popcorn bucket, which everyone is kind of leaning towards Slaughter Cinema being. The code name is Donuts. I do not have a guess for that.
I hate these little things.
I don't know how donuts could apply to that or really any of the potential houses that are on there. I mean, I really don't have much on that one. And then Sprung Tent 4, the code name is Sunday. And that is on the speculation map version 2, the lantern, which I think is referencing Insidious. So I don't know. I mean, maybe because they're exorcisms and Sunday is when you go to church. That could be something. I mean, not really exorcisms, but demons and stuff like that. That's really
true.
the only like stretch I could make for Sunday. Because
Mhm.
I think it's a play on the word. It doesn't have to do with the Sunday ice cream Sunday.
It's
Unless no.
I don't know. No,
Maybe
no.
because the lipstick demon is like red and he looks like a cherry, and you get a cherry on top of your Sunday.
You're
These are
real
how
more
like stupid the
yeah.
stretches are, though. Because when you look at the code names like from
Mhm.
previous years, they're very much stretches like that.
Yeah.
Like Chucky was orange because his hair is orange.
Mhm.
They were
Which
all
that one
fruits last
I
year.
feel like that one's a little more guessable though. Like even these, I feel like it's so hard to even. I just hate when they put out the code names for the houses and the sprung tents, honestly, because it frustrates me so much that they're just so creative. It's just like I strive to be that creative in coming up with something like this, and it's not even that it's like so difficult to understand because as soon as like when we do the unmasking the horror tours, they usually tell us like the code names behind it, like how they got the idea for it, and I'm like, damn, it was so obvious. How did I not think of that? And like you were saying, looking at last year's, like Stranger Things was like kumquat. I don't even remember what kumquat had to do with it. I don't know if you
Kumquat
remember.
because it was a strange fruit name.
God damn it. Yeah, see shit
Yeah,
like
because it's a strange name.
oh my god. But
It's
yeah,
just
so
they're very vague and they're very open ended and they're all up
yeah.
for your interpretation.
Mhm. But it is
It's
fun
just
though, and
all
it's a good
bizarre
way.
stuff. That
And it's a good way for them to keep it under the lock, so.
yeah. All
Mhm.
right. Well, like I said, this was a kind of thrown together last minute episode, but we wanted
Mhm.
to touch on those things and kind of get all that work out of the way so we can kind of
Mhm.
clear our slate and get ready for the upcoming stuff. So again, before we jump off, I just want to remind everybody that is a local. May 22nd, we have our trivia night. So please come on out. We want to see you all. We want to celebrate in person. You're the only reason why we've still been doing this for 4 years. Well, other than the fact that we enjoy it, but we obviously would enjoy it a lot less if we didn't have all you great listeners out there who kind of tune in to us and keep us going through the week. So like I said, May 22nd, we are going to be with the Catacombs of Horror Nights. We have HHN 365. We have the RIP tour, and it's going to be at Top Golf live trivia, 7:30. It's going to be very, very fun. So we want to thank everybody for coming to our last one and get them all hyped up for this one. We have some really cool prizes / news coming out. We'll probably fill you in middle of the week next week as far as kind of what we're giving away and doing stuff like that. And Murder on Main is going to be there as well, selling merch. DOA clothing is going to be there selling merch. So come on out, support them. They're going to have some really cool stuff, some mystery bags, some exclusive merch that really can only be purchased at the event. So you'll get first dibs on some of that stuff. So again, thank you all very much for listening to us for just about 4 years now. And yeah, that's really all we got. Any last thoughts on anything we talked about at all, Jamie?
Well, I was gonna say thanks for listening to us for a year for me at least, but you guys have really, really put in the work with Nick and Seamus. I still can't believe people listen. I think it's super cool. It really is. But going back to the episode with all this crazy stuff and cryptic messages and videos and everything that's coming out, I really have no words for it. Like I've said, I wish I was more crafty in that department. I'm glad there are the Discord chats and Twitter and Instagram and all these other things of people who could help decipher these things and help us out a little bit. So I'm very intrigued to see when we will get an announcement, though, because I do think it'll be soon.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. But
Mhm.
all right, well, until next time, this is Nick.
This is Jamie.
Happy haunts.
It's cursed. Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare. And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out, Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.